Alright, hello everyone and welcome to lesson 4. Today we're going to be discussing conditional statements and loops. There's going to be a lot of information in this exercise, so let's get down to it. Just as an FYI, we're going to be using the same console application that we were using before, and yeah, I was going to do a little bit more of a difficult lesson this time around, but actually we should probably just use this. It will be fine, going with the same stuff that we've been doing. I think after this lesson, though, I'm going to have you guys start identifying some side projects. I'm going to be working with you on your side projects to try to do things of interest. So that's kind of exciting, too. On to the learning, though, okay? So once again, we're going to be discussing conditional statements and loops. The first type of statements that we're going to be discussing is the if statement. An if statement performs different computations or actions depending on whether a condition evaluates the true or false. Okay. Um, in the previous lesson, as you can see right here, we used if statements to determine what type of action we wanted to perform: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. If statements are extremely popular in all programming languages. I cannot stress this enough. This is probably the biggest statement that you will use. Like it's the most common one. And they're pretty simple. I mean, you guys have already worked with them. You compare a variable equal to the same variable type, and there you have it. Um, Going into an example with this, there's really no need. You guys interacted with it last week. I just wanted to make you guys aware that it is something called a conditional statement. Okay. Um, so let's change this actually to lesson 4. Alrighty. Now, the second type of statement that we're going to discuss is like a switch statement. A switch statement is a type of selection control mechanism used to allow the value of an expression to change the control flow of program execution via multi-way branch. Oof, that was rough. Um, Sounds complex, huh? Well, let me show you how it works here. Okay? So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a switch statement in here. So we're actually going to switch on the value called operation, okay? And then we're going to do a bunch of cases. Case 1. Or I'm sorry. And then break. Case 2. You'll see how this lines up. Break. Case 3. Break. Case 4. Break. Okay. So this is actually how I like to do them. I like to include the breaks there. So what the breaks do is after it goes into 3 here, much like an if statement, it's actually going to break out of this switch statement with these little curly braces here. Brandon, I know you were talking about this before, and curly braces throw you off. Curly braces, the best way of putting of explaining it is that everything inside of a curly brace is what's called a scope. Okay, it's within the um, actually, that's probably the best way that I can explain it. I don't have an analogy ready for that. But it's within scope. So whenever you break out of a scope, you're actually breaking out of everything that's in the parentheses. Okay, so if you break right here, you're not going to bother evaluating 2, 3, or 4. Okay, does that make sense? All right, hopefully. Get back to me on that one if that doesn't make any sense. I will try to give you guys an analogy. Okay, so what we did is we actually just moved from a switch statement. I'm sorry, from an if statement to a switch statement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to grab these comments to make things a little bit clearer. Right, and subtraction, multiply, and divide. Okay. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to put that code inside there, and we're going to run this again. Okay. Oh, by the way, good job everyone on Jen and Rich specifically got back to me on what went wrong here on number 4. You guys were right. It's the double variable type that, or I'm sorry, the double type that you should have used, and then you guys also knew to go in here and change this from int to double, and that actually allows for you to be able to um, do division based off of decimal values. Okay, so you could get back like 2.5 instead of just 2. Okay, so let's run this program. Okay, so as you can see, the if statement's completely gone. We switched over to switch. And give me a number 1. Give me a second number 3, or I'm sorry, 4. And then let's add them together. We should have 5. Boom. So as you can see, our little console calculator is working. Um, so that's what a switch statement does. It kind of is a different way of structuring your code instead of doing like a bunch of if then else's. If you have multiple things, you can actually do some bleed over clauses like case 1 and case 5. So if someone else put in 5, we'll actually just do this right now, right? So let's say 5 is also valid for addition here. Give me a number 1, 4. But instead of following 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'm going to put in 5. As you can see, it's still going to add it together, okay? Because we have 2 cases on here before the break, right? But yeah. So that's switch statements. It's just a little bit of a different way of structuring your code path, okay? Honestly, I like using switch statements whenever instead of like really long if statements because it's a little bit cleaner in my mind, all right? Um, so yeah, we covered the basics of if statements and switch statements, but we haven't even discussed loops. Okay, um, so loops are also super, super, super important. Um, there are 3 types of loops that I'd like to go over today. The first loop I would like to go over is something called a for loop, okay? A for loop iterates over an array or a collection and allows for code to be executed repeatedly while the value changes, okay? I'm going to do an example here on the fly to show you a for loop. A for each loop, which is actually my personal favorite, um, is a for loop, but it's much cleaner, okay? The for loop traverses items in a collection without an explicit counter, and I will explain what that means here in a little bit. The last loop I would like to discuss is a while loop. And actually, before I delete all of this code from our console application, I'm probably going to show you how a while loop is important, okay? So a while loop executes repeatedly based off of a given Boolean condition. And I guess we'll just get into this right now. Okay, so instead of... Here, let's try this. Hold on. Okay, so let's do string operation equal to string dot empty. Okay, that makes it an empty string. Oh, it's not a method, it's a property. And then while equal to or so I'm trying to think of a clean way of doing this that's not going to... Yeah, I don't want to do it like that. Disregard that. Read line. Okay. Actually, this will be fine. This will be fine. Okay. While convert to int 32 operation is greater than 5, or I'm sorry, greater than 4. Let's do this. Yes, here we go. Sorry, I didn't think about how I was going to plan this as well as I probably should have. But looks like we figured it out. Okay, so a guard clause to make sure that the operation is within an acceptable range. All right, and I want you guys to figure out how you could break this guard clause. Okay, so please give me a number 1. Please give me a second number 5. All right, so 1 through 4 is our operations that we're allowing. Okay, so if you go higher than 4, it should ask us again for a valid operation, okay? And that's where while clauses are really good. It prevents a program from being able to proceed forward until you enter in the actual correct value, okay? So what this is called, just so you guys know too, it's called a guard clause. It prevents the code below it from executing. Sometimes you want to return or break, as you saw before, and yeah. So let's comment this stuff out here, all right? Because this is all really good stuff. But right, this is a region block. You guys will see what these are. Don't use these often, but it's really good whenever you want to keep old code somewhere. Okay. Um, it's a bad coding practice to keep stuff in regions, because if there is actually code in there, another developer coming in is not going to be able to find it because it's collapsed in there. I'm just putting that in there for now. Okay, so the 2 loops that we have here are for loops and for each loops. Now these are pretty difficult to explain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the differences of when each are very strong. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go string name equal to Craig. Okay, so we have a string there. Okay, now for int counter equal to 0, counter is less than name dot length counter plus plus. Okay, so this is how you do a for loop, and don't panic, guys. I know this looks really messy. So for loops, generally what you want to do is you want to start on a 0-based index. A lot of things in programming, they don't start at 1, they start at 0, and go on. So it's always going to, so if you have a 5-letter word like Craig, C is going to be at index 0, R is going to be at index 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just going to keep going on like that. It's very important for you to remember that a lot of things are 0-base indexed. However, not everything is 0-base indexed, so it kind of makes for some pretty tricky, crazy things. Whenever you're for lack of a better, whenever you're indexing into a lot of properties and stuff like you're going to see here, generally it's 0-based, but it's not always, once again. So anyhow, write line. Let's write every letter of my name on a line here. So dot. Okay. So what I'm doing here is you can treat a string. You put these little brackets in here, and it actually allows for you to treat it like a character array. Remember the difference between characters and strings is that characters have one and only one. This is one of the rare examples where you can do this, all right? Gets the character object at a specific position at the current string object, okay? So that sounds very technical, but all it's going to do is it's going to grab us. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Here, I'll just copy this out of here. Make sure whenever you're doing this to keep this, or else the command prompt will just terminate really quickly, and it can be very annoying. Okay, let's uncomment that. By the way, I don't know if I actually went into this too, so a little bit of a tangent, but obviously still related to programming. To comment out a line of code, it's just 2 forward slashes, okay? To remove it, just get them away from there. Now, you can't do it anywhere, okay? It's got to be at the beginning, okay? Or else you're going to get one of these right there, okay? Always try to comment out lines at a time, okay? So anyhow, let's go ahead and run this, and we should see CRAIG, all right? Boom. All right, so that's where um, for loops become a little bit powerful. However, that's very messy, okay? There has to be a cleaner way of learning what loops are, okay? For each var letter in name, okay? So what this is intrinsically going to do is it's going to know to index into the string and get all of the characters out that it possibly can. So what you're going to see here, oops, it doesn't have counter there. So I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to get rid of that index there. And also, the really nice thing too is that you get your own little variable. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, once again, don't use var. That's bad practice for right now, okay? Whenever you become a lazy programmer like me, you can start using var. Until then, make sure to always explicitly type what you want. Like if I tried to make this an int, it should cry at me. Hello? What's going on here? Maybe it'll just break. Hold on. Oh, that's right. It can cast it. Oh, that's interesting. So just go back to char. That's grabbing the Unicode, by the way. Let's not get into that. So as you can see right there, CRAIG. Okay, it automatically uh, looked at name and it grabbed all of the letters, and it did essentially what this did. And you can see right away whenever I was talking about this why I prefer for each loops. Almost always to for loops. It's good to know how for loops work, and sometimes it's actually kind of unavoidable. I don't have a situation ready for uh, the strength of when to use a for loop over a for each loop. So generally, as a rule of thumb, you can probably always get away with these. However, if you're ever iterating over something and you don't know how to make something work, ask me, and it might be one of those situations where you need to use a for loop instead of a for each loop. Okay, guys, I hope this was really helpful. I know we went through a lot of stuff. I hope you guys all understood what I was talking about and why I wanted to go over these conditional statements, okay? So, as of now, you guys have had a lot of really important lessons, and if you're still with me right now, the good news is the next lesson that I'm going to do, I'm going to actually work with all of you guys individually to get you guys all going on like some projects. If you guys are wanting to start like a blog or something, that would be wonderful. If you guys actually need to like work on like a company website, I would have to shy you guys away from like video game programming because there's a lot of like math and craziness that goes in there. But if you guys could actually think of like a website that you would really like to program, I would really like to get you guys started on that. So yeah, that concludes today's lesson. Please let me know if you guys have any questions, if anything was hard to understand, and yeah, I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for sticking with me so far. You guys are doing awesome.